Welcome back to Coremates. Today, we're diving into something so common, yet so tricky, saying no. Yes, that tiny little word that somehow feels enormous. No can feel like a rebellion, a betrayal, or even a moral failing, especially when it comes to people we love. Exactly. And the truth is, it doesn't have to feel that way. We'll unpack why saying no feels impossible, why your brain reacts the way it does, and how to practice it without guilt, step by step. Think of this as a coffee conversation between friends. No judgment, no lecture, just honest sharing, insights, and tiny tools you can try today. You know what I've noticed? Most people don't struggle with saying no because they don't know how. They struggle because saying no feels emotionally dangerous. Yes. It's not a communication problem, it's a safety one.
Exactly.
Because when you think about it, no one is born afraid of saying no. Kids say it all the time, loudly, repeatedly, until they learn what happens after they say it. The silence, the disappointment, the shift in tone, that subtle feeling of, oh, I just did something wrong. And that's where the pattern begins. Our brains connect no with loss of love, approval, safety, belonging. So later in life, when a friend asks for something you don't have the energy for, or a family member crosses a line, or a partner expects more than you can give, your body reacts before your mind even gets involved. You don't think, what do I want? You think, what will happen if I disappoint them? And suddenly you're saying yes, even while something inside you tightens. That tightness is important. It's often the first signal that a boundary is being crossed. But many of us were taught to override that signal. To be nice. To be flexible. To not make things awkward. Especially women. Especially in families. Especially in romantic relationships. We get praised for being easygoing, understanding, low maintenance. And slowly, we learn that being agreeable keeps the peace, even if it costs us ourselves. So when people say, just say no, it misses the point. Because what you're really unlearning isn't politeness, it's the belief that your needs are a threat to connection. And that belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from real experiences, real reactions, real consequences you felt in your body and heart. Which means this isn't about forcing confidence. It's about understanding the roots, so you can change the pattern with compassion, not shame. And once you see that, you can start noticing how this plays out in daily life. Not in theory, but in texts, conversations, relationships, and tiny, everyday moments. You know what I started realizing after we talked about why saying no feels so hard? It's not the big moments that get us. It's the ordinary ones. The everyday yes we don't even register anymore. Exactly. It's not like someone asks, can I slowly drain your energy?
And we agree.
It's more like, can you come? Can you help? Can you stay a bit longer? Can you just reply quickly? And none of those feel big enough to say no to. Yes. And then suddenly your week is full, your body feels heavy, and you don't even remember when you agreed to all of it. I notice it a lot in friendships. Someone texts, are you free? And even before I check in with myself, my fingers are already typing, yeah, sure. Not because I am free, but because I don't want to disappoint. Or because we've learned that being available equals being lovable. If you're easy, flexible, low maintenance, you're good. Exactly. And it sneaks into dating too. You agree to plans you're unsure about. You keep conversations going when your body feels tired. You don't want to seem difficult, uninterested, or too much. So you override the quiet signal inside you that says, I need a pause. And at work, it's almost invisible. You take on one more task. You say yes to staying late. You answer messages after hours. Not because you want to, but because saying no feels risky. Like it might change how people see you. What I find heartbreaking is that none of this looks dramatic from the outside. You're still kind, still helpful, still showing up. But on the inside, something starts thinning out. Clarity, energy, your sense of choice. You don't feel like you're choosing anymore. You feel like you're responding. And that's when resentment creeps in quietly. Not at others, at yourself. Because somewhere deep down, you know you didn't betray them. You betrayed your own limit. That's the part people don't talk about. Saying yes too often doesn't just make you tired, it disconnects you from yourself. You stop trusting your own signals. You stop believing your needs matter enough to protect. And it's important to say this clearly. None of this means you're weak, or bad at boundaries, or incapable of saying no. It means you learned, slowly, quietly, that harmony was safer than honesty. And once you see that, you start to realize, this isn't about becoming harder. It's about becoming more honest. Which brings us to the part most people miss. Why saying no isn't just discouraged. It's often praised not to. You know what helped me the most, and this surprised me, was realizing that saying no doesn't start with words. It starts with noticing. Noticing what? The moment in my body before I answer. That tiny tightening. That little drop in my stomach. That quiet I don't actually want this. I used to override that instantly. Now I try to pause there. I know exactly what you mean. For me, it shows up as this rush, like I need to respond fast or I'll lose my chance to be liked. So I've been practicing. Slowing my reply. Not forever. Just long enough to check in. Yes, because most of the damage happens in speed. We say yes automatically, not intentionally. So one of the simplest practices I've tried is giving myself permission to say, let me think about it. That sentence alone feels revolutionary. Like, wait, I'm allowed to consider? Right? No explanation. No apology. Just space. And what's interesting is, the people who respect you usually respect that pause. And the ones who don't, that tells you something important. I also started practicing saying partial yes, instead of all or nothing. Like, I can't help with everything, but I can do this part. Or I'd love to see you, but I only have an hour. That one was huge for me. It taught my nervous system that connection doesn't require self-erasure. You don't have to disappear to stay close.
Exactly.
And there's another one that changed things for me, learning to sit with the guilt without fixing it. Because the guilt shows up. But it doesn't mean you did something wrong. Yes, guilt is often just the echo of an old rule. Good people don't disappoint others. But now, when guilt comes, I ask myself, is this about my values or my conditioning? And I let the guilt pass, like a wave, without running back to apologize. That takes courage. But it gets easier. And the funny thing? The more I practice small, honest no's, the less dramatic they feel. They stop feeling like rejection. They start feeling like alignment. And your body learns slowly that saying no doesn't destroy relationships. It protects the ones that are real. And maybe that's the most important practice of all, choosing honesty over harmony. Because harmony built on self-betrayal isn't actually peace. It's just silence. And once I realized that, I stopped trying to win every interaction. I started asking a different question. Can I stay connected to myself while I respond? That question alone changes the whole energy. Because now the goal isn't approval, it's integrity. Yes, and integrity doesn't have to be loud. One practice I started using was paying attention to tone, not just words. I noticed I used to soften my voice too much when saying no, almost like I was asking permission. Now I practice saying things slowly. Neutral. Grounded. Not cold. Just steady. That steadiness is everything. Because when your tone is calm, your body sends a different message too. I notice that when I keep my shoulders relaxed, feet on the ground, jaw unclenched, even difficult conversations feel less threatening. It's like my body is saying, I'm safe here. I don't need to rush. That's such an important point. Because our nervous system listens to how we say something more than what we say. If your body is panicking while your mouth says no, the guilt multiplies. But when your body feels anchored, the no lands more gently even for you. I also stopped over-explaining. That was huge. I realized that the longer my explanation, the less confident I actually felt. So now I practice short sentences like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I'm choosing something else right now. And then I stop talking. The stopping is the hardest part. Because our instinct is to fill the silence, to soften, justify, repair. But silence is actually part of the boundary. It gives the other person a chance to meet you where you are instead of pulling you back into where you used to be. And when discomfort shows up because it will, I remind myself, this feeling is temporary. Self-betrayal lasts longer. That reframing helped me sit through the awkwardness without undoing myself. That's such a powerful truth. I also started practicing no's in low-stakes places first. Not with the hardest people. Not in the most emotional situations. But with small things. A declined invitation. A delayed reply. A simple "not today." Because confidence builds through repetition, not confrontation. And slowly something shifts. Your body starts to trust you again. It learns, she listens to me. She doesn't abandon me under pressure. And that trust, it changes everything. You stop bracing all the time. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop feeling like every interaction is a test. Saying no becomes less about defense and more about honesty. And maybe the most surprising part? The right relationships don't fracture. They adjust. They breathe. They deepen. Because the people who can handle your no are the ones who can truly meet your yes. And then, something starts to shift, quietly. You notice that saying no, even a tiny one, doesn't make the world collapse. It doesn't make people leave. It doesn't make you less lovable. Instead, it feels lighter. A little more grounded. Like, for the first time in a while, you're not constantly stretching yourself thin to fit someone else's expectations. Yes, and the small acts add up. That pause before you answer, the partial yes, sitting with the guilt without running. Over time, it feels like coming home to yourself. You start trusting your own rhythm. Your body, your mind, your heart. They guide you instead of being drowned out by everyone else's needs. And the relationships that stick around? They're stronger, softer, more real. It's not dramatic. It's not flashy. It's just peace. A kind of peace that isn't built on pleasing. It's built on presence. On honesty. On choosing yourself gently every single day. And the best part? You realize you don't need to disappear to be loved. You don't need to overextend to feel worthy. You just are enough. So, if you're listening right now, take a moment. Breathe. Notice your body. Notice that little whisper of a no that's always been there. And let yourself honor it. This is how change happens. Not in explosions. Not in perfection. But in tiny, intentional acts of self-trust. Your no is a compass. It points you back to yourself. And every time you follow it, you practice freedom quietly, lovingly, and fully. And if you felt even a little spark from this conversation, subscribe to Coremates so we can keep sharing these chats, these insights, and these little practices together. We'll be here, same space, same softness, every day until Christmas.